Hmm. If God loves me unconditionally, then what's my incentive to not sin? Hello, Catholic Controversy here. And about a month ago, I was visiting a non denominational Christian church, and the sermon was about spiritual liberalism versus spiritual legalism. Doing whatever you want because God will love you unconditionally versus following God's rules to the T because that's how you get God to love you. And how neither of them is really correct, and you got to find some sort of middle ground. And the pastor, he kind of struggled to explain the concept. And I don't blame him. It's a rather difficult thing to explain and comprehend, unless you start looking at it this way. Let's take a step back. Let's stop looking at our spiritual relationship with God and just step back to an easier relationship to understand our relationship with our parents. Now, I'm going to assume that pretty much all of us have had some sort of house rules when we were growing up. When we were living with our parents from infancy all the way up through moving out, there were some rules. Like you couldn't play music very, very loudly. You had to keep the volume at reasonable level. You couldn't leave your dishes out on the table. You had to clean up after yourself. If you were in the living room, you had to use a coaster so that you wouldn't screw up the nice end table. You wouldn't take calls after midnight. All sorts of different little tiny things. As long as you're living under my roof, you follow my rules. That sort of thing. And, once you moved out, get your own place, you don't need to follow those rules anymore. You could leave the refrigerator door open for all you cared. You could have leave the window open in the middle of winter while you have the heat on high for whatever reason. You could lean back in the chair. You could use a coast. You don't have to use a coaster in your living room. You don't have to clean up immediately. You could just let your dishes sit until you need to do the dishes. All those sorts of things. It's your place. You could do whatever you want. So, yeah. Now, what about when you go back and visit your parents? You're not moving back in. You're not staying there. You're not living under their house, so you got to follow their rules. You're just there for a visit. That happens. Barbecue, holidays, just birthday, whatever. So, what do? Do you still follow their rules or do you do whatever you want? Do you put your drink on their nice end table and get that nice ring on it? Do you lean back in the chair, causing it to break? Do you leave the refrigerator door open because I'm not paying for the electricity, so I don't care? Do you leave your dishes everywhere and say, oh, my mom will take care of that? Most of us don't. Most of us still follow their rules. Most of us recognize that, this is their house. I respect them and I love them and I want to do right by them. That's why you would follow their rules. That's why you would still use the coaster. You'd clean up after yourself. You'd not play the music too loud. If you're spending the night, you wouldn't take calls after midnight, waking everyone up because you love and respect your parents. Now take that love and respect and apply that to your spiritual life. Apply that to your relationship with God. Your parents are going to love you unconditionally. They might not invite you over as often if you ruin their house every time that you come over, but they're still going to love you. But you do their things, you don't ruin their house because you love them. That's why you do it. Because you love and respect them and you want to show that love and respect to them through that way. Same thing with God. You could sin as much as you want and sure God might not be as pleased with you, but he's still going to love you. But what are you doing? How are you showing that you love him if you're doing all that? You follow God's rules. You try to not sin because you want to show that you love him. That's the reason why. You don't have to worry about spiritual legalism versus spiritual liberalism because the happy medium is you showing that you love God. Think about that. This has been Catholic Controversy signing off. May God bless you.